Hello everyone, my name is Anirudh Singla. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Pepper Content. We started Pepper with this idea of enabling every company to become a content company. And we're running this amazing podcast series and list called Global Content Marketing Leaders. Today we have with us Shanti, who's currently at a director of content marketing at Craigslist. She's been in content for quite some time. And Shanti, thank you so much for taking out the time. We're
Yeah.
very excited to host you today.
Likewise, I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having
Ama-
me.
Amazing. So, Shanti, very curious to know more about your journey and what got you into content marketing, or content for that matter,
Yeah.
and how has the journey evolved over time? How have you personally evolved with the journey? That really helped.
Yeah. So I would say I got my start more in content than in marketing. I actually have my acting degree in theater.
Oh, wow.
So storytelling has always been a part of my DNA, I would say. But my first big girl job out of college, I worked at this tiny recruiting firm in Orange County that specialized in placing engineers at startups or larger tech companies. And I did basically everything there but the recruiting. And so we hired an external team of blog writers because our CEO wanted to become a thought leader in his
Yeah.
space. And sadly, the articles they provided for us were really bad quality. And I just was like, I can write better than this. Why don't you let me take a stab at this? Pay me the $500 a month and I'll just do it. Um, so I did. And that I didn't stay long at that recruiting company. I actually ended up taking that portfolio over to my first tech job and marketing job at a company called Weed Maps. For those who don't know, Weed Maps is exactly what it sounds like. It is the Yelp of cannabis. And this was back in 2016. So, like, right at the precipice of it becoming like fully legal in
Yeah.
California.
Yeah.
Its since it's expanded quite a bit. Um, but I was one of the first hires on a team that focused very specifically on SEO
Hmm.
with content. Um, and just built up this huge library of different pieces of educational content. Got very, very good at branding because I would work with a lot of the small businesses that worked with us there and then listed on the site. And really jumped in feet first into the world of like branding and storytelling. And then from Weed Maps, I went to Snap, and that kind of started my trajectory of working at tech companies of all different sizes, primarily with SaaS companies, so software as a service, often marketplace companies where there's actually multiple
Yeah.
audiences, B2B, B2C, B2B2C. Um, and yeah, I got to where I'm at now, Crexy, almost 5 years ago.
Wow.
Just in content marketing in general. I was their first content marketing hire. And now I lead quite a few more initiatives there.
No, amazing.
Yeah, it's been a great run so far.
That's great to know. Just very curious, like when you got into Craigslist, right, and
Hmm.
you're the first content marketing hire, I think that's also a stage where a lot of people, there's just so much to do, and
Hmm.
especially they like I was looking at it, commercial real estate software. That's just very different. That's very different niche. Like you could think about insurance, but
Yeah.
thinking about that needs just some very serious understanding of the space. So, just as a marketer, as a content
Hmm.
person, what were your instincts like at that time? And over
Hmm.
time, how did you learn to think about, hey, what are the next five things should I be doing? And I think most people I feel don't have the patience because
Mm.
because content's not something that gives you immediate outcomes. It takes time to
Yeah.
compound. So, how did you go about building that team, process, structure, and just how did you have the patience to
Yeah.
get to this?
Yeah, well, thankfully, at Crexy, we have a really wonderful marketing leader that understands the value of brand and that it is, in fact, a long play, like you mentioned. Um, so when I started, it was right before the pandemic started. So really, really good timing. But there were a lot of low hanging fruit, I would say, right off the bat. Our blog was an afterthought. There was no SEO thought put into it. There wasn't really any strategy. It had barely any traffic. And, Crexy is very uniquely positioned where there's not really a lot of technology companies, or at least back then, in the commercial real estate space. I would say CRE is maybe 5 to 10 years behind where other sectors are in terms of tech adoption. So a big part of the focus from a brand perspective was just getting our name out there and education, education, education. So right off the bat, focus number one was creating a really high quality blog. And we did. Still on WordPress, we had since migrated to a headless CMS, which, you mentioned we'll talk about kind of the future of content marketing a little later. So headless, wonderful. I love headless CMSs. But yeah, first was getting a high quality blog up, building a really robust multi-pronged strategy in terms of what content we want to create, speaking to all these different audiences that exist in commercial real estate and that might use Crexy's tools. And then once that foundation is laid, really just trying to build consistency, build trust, look at the analytics and figure out what's working, what's not, and test things. But I think from a storytelling brand perspective, people really resonate with consistency, and, now it's really, really paid off. I mean, we're here talking and very flattered to be here. We actually just won, I run our podcast at Crexy too. It's called the Crexy Podcast and interviews people in commercial real estate about their careers, what their focuses are, current market trends. And we actually just got recognized as one of the top CRE podcasts just last week.
Wow.
So thank you. It's been, again, the long play, but, really setting up that delivery upon expectations for your audience, I think goes a long way to building trust with them.
Yes. Well, I think that's amazing. And Crexy, how were you given this is your first content marketing job where you were now starting to be almost like the leader for content in your company? How was that experience like for the first time? Like a lot of big bets, right? Like you mentioned the podcast. I'm sure that would have taken a different school of thought. Like you don't organically think about a CRE podcast, right? So
Yeah.
blending that in and so on. So just curious, how do you go about executing on these things as well? Because, like you mentioned, I saw you were focusing on writing about 500 articles and like that kind of scale, then traffic. Personally, what kind of ecosystem did you build? Was it more in house? Was it agencies, freelancers?
Yeah.
And over time, now with AI coming in, how has that also transformed? I'll be good to know.
Yeah. So I think, coming into a startup with a lean team, you inherently have to wear a dozen different hats. It's more, I think people, when they bring you onto that small, tight knit group,
Yeah.
they are putting trust in you. They're saying, figure out how to do it. We'll throw things at the wall, see
Yeah.
what sticks. And I had my experience, working for several years before that. But I think that inherent nimbleness was something
Yeah.
that advantaged our team and our initiatives. Definitely worked a lot with freelancers. We're still a very lean marketing team. Crexy as a whole is about 350 now, and the marketing team is roughly 22,
Oh, wow.
I think. Yeah, and we're a powerhouse. But yeah, relying a lot on external partners. With AI in particular, I think there's a lot of fear around it, understandably. But I think what opportunity it provides is a way to unlock your time as especially a content marketer so that you can
Yeah.
level up what else you're capable of in terms of
Yes.
vision, in terms of strategy, in terms of really differentiating yourself, which is a huge part of
Yeah.
the, marriage of brand and content. Um, and so for us, I'm using ChatGPT to say, hey, why don't you pretend you're a podcast interviewer, give me X amount of questions based on this person's bio. And I think human intervention will be crucial
Yeah.
for a very long time. But the idea of a computer being your intern or your assistant or helping the things that otherwise would take several hours of your time and not allow you to focus on
Yes.
leveling yourself up, it's just such an ad, I think.
No, I understand. And you mentioned that your focus, you also come from understanding SEO well.
Mhm.
How you looking at organic and SEO today? And also just curious, Shanti, how much of your business is impacted through what you do? Like
Mm.
from a data, from insight standpoint,
Mhm.
is organic contributing to meaningful pipeline? Does the podcast help in driving
Mhm.
more business? How does one think around those things?
Yeah, measuring the ROI of content is the ever elusive smoke you can't quite get your hands around. Um, I will say that SEO in particular has been really huge. So the blog itself of Crexy is an online marketplace.
Okay.
There are hundreds of thousands of pages on our
Oh
website.
wow.
So SEO as a whole, from a technical perspective and on-page content perspective, that's a much larger ask working with the engineering team, with product, thinking about it from a user experience perspective, and then, merging that all in with
Yeah.
SEO. I do have some thoughts about how SEO is going to shift, given that more and more people are starting to search and answer questions with AI. But that's a whole other ballgame.
I'd love to deep dive directly into that. Why don't you?
Well, not necessarily thoughts. I think just a strong curiosity about how it will go. We're already starting to see with AI snippets. People are asking a lot of questions about how. I think it's Gemini that's the model
Yeah.
that's working with Google
Yeah.
search right now, but just how is the AI thinking about what is a stronger or less strong source? How is it thinking about its
Yeah.
responses? We've been very pleased to see that we're actually getting quite a few AI snippets with our blog articles in particular. So that's very
Amazing.
exciting. I do think it still stems from a very strong content
Yes.
strategy. And, Google has made it very clear that providing value to the reader is the most important thing,
Yes.
not just keyword stuffing or optimizing like crazy.
Yes.
Um, I think that's still going to be true. I can't recall the name of it, but there is an AI company that is currently building an AI search engine.
Perplexity?
That's the one.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see what direction
What
they
those
go
guys are
in.
doing.
Yeah.
No, this is very interesting because at Pepper, so we started off with a talent network and talent market. So
Hmm.
we're also marketplace business, helping enterprises produce more content.
Hmm.
So we had these subject matter experts, about 5,000 of these freelance experts, and we used to offer like a managed service.
Hmm.
Still do. Um, Back in 2021, I think early, Chat GPT-3 got launched. So
Hmm.
this is 2 years before Chat GPT.
Hmm.
And at that time, because pre-GPT, Pepper had produced about 750,000 pieces of content
Hmm.
for our customers. And a lot of those were consumer use cases and marketplaces. And we learned this one interesting thing, that if you put AI on a number line of 1 to 10,
Hmm.
a 1 to 5, which is high volume, low value content, will get automated.
Hmm.
But 5 to 10, which is strategic content, will need experts enabled by AI.
Hmm.
So while we also had a marketplace of experts running, we ended up building a tool called peppertype.ai. It's very similar to Jasper or Copy,
Hmm.
if you've heard of them.
Hmm.
And that tool went from zero to 500,000 users globally.
Awesome.
It's pretty crazy. And I think a big lesson from that was, after a year, we decided to subsume it in our marketplace because we realized that just AI alone, after a time, it feels very stagnant, the output and the quality. And now I think we've arrived at this more comfortable definition of a human plus AI approach. And we have hundreds of customers that keep asking us whether content should be AI generated or not, and so on. And I think the simple answer is Google's always been focused about value addition. And the thing with AI is it pretty much garbles stuff in and then rephrases it in a more contextual language, but it necessarily does not mean it's improving the quality.
Yes.
It's just it's written in a better, different manner. And I think what we've seen is because Google's core updates also keep coming up. So they had a March update where 40% of the websites in the world had traffic down, and now it's suddenly up, but it keeps going down.
Yeah.
I think the larger learning, like you rightly said, is it's about the quality, it's about investment in subject expertise. Like, for example, imagine we're doing this podcast right now and we go write a blog about it, and they say 5 new insights from Shanti. Google would rather index that versus 5 statistics about content,
Mm-hmm.
right?
No,
So because
absolutely.
it's net new thought. So yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think, and personally, I feel SEO is here to stay.
Yeah. No, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think
Yes.
it is transforming in a very interesting way. And yeah, that going back to your question about content and how it relates to driving business value, I think it's exactly that. I do think there is an inherent thirst for hearing original thoughts from people who are experts in this space.
Yeah.
And as a brand, we're a marketplace in particular, but I feel like many brands can create a version of this, aligning yourself with these people who have thought about these topics, who are sharing them, who are having, like we're having right now, organic
Yes.
conversations in which
Yes.
new ideas arise in the
Yes.
moment. AI can only take what's come before and
Yes.
shuffle it around.
Yes.
And that can look like magic to people who aren't looking at every single
Yes.
article in existence. It does save you time.
Yes.
But I would say that originality and these thought starters, conversation starters in the form of the podcast, in the form of a big part of Crexy's content strategy is doing market reports. So we have an intelligence tool which shows all kinds of market data
Wow.
in different MSAs, different asset classes, so industrial buildings versus offices, for example. And we create monthly and quarterly reports for our readers, partially to show off, this is what intelligence can do. This is why you should pay for it.
Yeah.
But also we're driving the conversation. These are the patterns we're noticing in our own data. Here's what we think about them. Let's discuss. And, the more you can align yourself with conversations of that caliber and quality and create space for those conversations, again, it all goes back to trust. People trust in stories and people trust in people.
Yes.
And that's something I've really tried to underline from a strategy perspective.
That's a very amazing point, which is people trust people. Even we work a lot with B2B companies, and I think big learning is eventually it's still human to human communication, right? And I think it's all about being able to build that trust factor. And I think suddenly things become way easier.
Yeah.
And Shanti, just for your just trying to understand and get a sense of how you think. Uh, Personally, what are problems as a content leader that you're striving to fight, say, day to day or year to year? Like, what are still areas of innovation or problems that you feel could actually empower you as a content leader even to the next stage?
Personally, I think something I struggle with is sometimes scale. It's like being the founder of a company. It's really scary making those first couple of hires because you've created something of yourself.
Yeah.
And so learning how to delegate what can be delegated, creating those processes and frameworks for others to use. I think, I've lucked out in a way, not having to confront that yet because it has been just me. We actually used to work with a lot more freelancers and editors, and now it's just me thanks to AI, because AI has really simplified the job of editing and recording and, publishing even, podcasts in particular. But I think something that I am very eager to encounter when we do get to the next phase of scaling up is, okay, if I am given that extra time in the form of I now have other people full-time on my team to interview or to write the questions or to edit the video or to handle production and distribution, what do I then do with that free time?
Yes.
And I think as every person, really, it's not just a marketing or content thing, as every person grows in their role and moves up the corporate ladder, I think it's so important to continue sniffing the corners in which you can improve yourself and doing it. It's really easy to get complacent. It's really easy to be like, oh, this process works, I'll just let that ship run itself. I think, I've run into trouble sometimes being a one-person show, like feeling like I don't have the bandwidth to sniff those corners out. And something I really love about AI is that I'm getting more and more leeway to do that, to really think about, okay, like we just went to Lake Tahoe in July to film a women in commercial real estate focused series of our podcast. And now that's blossomed into a larger partnership with Globe Street, the company we partnered with. And so we're going to go film with them in October and next year. And so
much to do.
Yeah, there's always so much to do. But those opportunities wouldn't have come into play had there not been a moment in time for them to emerge and us to say yes to them, right? And so I think when more people join me on the content team, I want to continue down that path.
Makes sense.
Of finding more and more opportunities to get better, more room to say yes to interesting things, and also more time to look at what we have been doing and iterate on that too. I think there is a tendency, especially in startups, to look at the shiny new object and focus on that, as opposed to we have all of this pile of work that we need to maintain.
That?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I think that's amazing. And just, a very interesting question that ends up coming to a lot of us when we do these discussions is, have you seen content marketing budgets scale over time? Like, for example, given the quantum and volume of what you're doing, is that budget proportional to overall other budgets also that other channels of marketing get?
Yeah.
And do you think that you've personally seen that go up from a content standpoint?
So I'll be honest, I am so budget shy. I try to spend no money as much as possible, or very, very little, just because, I think there is so much that can be done from a zero cost standpoint. So I really try to lean on those. I will say we have definitely prioritized both content and brand related spend and event marketing spend more so than paid strategies lately. And I think that has to do with, again, advertising and paid media. That's never going to go away. But those aren't the avenues in which you differentiate yourself. They're just those tiny little pokes of attention that eventually, hopefully, somebody will click on. But
that isn't compounding.
No. Yes. And, I would, as a consumer, if I'm going to a website to read an article about a topic and then it gives me something good in terms of information or knowledge, I'm more likely to see that name again and go, wait, that's the website I read about this on. Go back, Now I have a relationship with that brand. Now, oh, wait, what do they actually do again?
Very interesting.
And then we'll probably use them for whatever thing that they do.
I
And
understand.
so, yeah, I think, content can cost a lot. I think there are a lot of ways that content is a lot cheaper than other marketing formats. And so something I've been really excited about is not necessarily like spend on freelancers or anything like that, but just the more and more resources are becoming available for us to play around with, which has been very exciting.
No, that's amazing. No, that's great to know. And I think moving on to the later parts of the conversation,
Hmm.
what are trends you're seeing in content and with AI coming in? How
Hmm.
are you seeing this change evolve into something meaningful?
Hmm. I mean, we touched on, needing to actually have valuable information,
Yes.
particularly in written pieces of content. I think, um, honestly, I think social media and content marketing are turning to, and event marketing are turning into one amorphous blob. Um, Really, video has been such a huge success driver for us. And, recording a podcast, just turn cameras on. That's got you however many hours much of video footage that you can use over and over again and then recycle it later down the line if you want to. Um, and I think there is such a strong interplay between the storytelling involved with your brand, which is content if it's longer form, where people see it, which is partially SEO, but a lot more social and even YouTube. We're just getting a little bit more into the weeds of YouTube strategy because I think people are using that increasingly as a
It's a
search
big
engine
search
as well.
platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and the event component of it is going out into the real world to capture these stories, whether it's a 5-minute word on the street interview, like, hey, let me stop you and ask you a couple questions, whether it's a longer form podcast like this. Um, the event itself, usually you can get really cool videos and photos from. And I think people resonate really, really strongly with witnessing these moments in time.
Yes.
And the more you can create a moment in time and align that with your brand, that's just going to keep serving you. So I think, we're already deep in the weeds of it. I think it's just going to keep going in that direction. Um, and AI is just going to make it easier for the layperson to create those moments.
Amazing.
That being said, there is the issue of oversaturation. And again, that's where the quality comes into play. If
Yes.
you have a high quality piece of content, people are going to be into that as opposed to a generative AI
Yes.
and like animated insanity piece. Though I will say I recently saw Nutter Butter's TikTok.
Okay.
Look it up after the recording. It is quite the brand play.
Okay. I think no, you're absolutely right because we're seeing brands play a big role with more and more of them becoming content or media publishers, right? Because I think because everything feels so same these days that the only way to do this is through very cutting edge, compelling content. In fact, very interestingly, I feel owned assets and owned media have grown quite a lot
Mm-hmm.
where like technically your podcast is an own channel, right? Which is
Yeah.
how you're driving building value. So no, that makes ton of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think just one last question before we move to the rapid fire round is if you were to restart your content marketing career
Mm.
in today's ecosystem with AI being there and so on. So I know 10 years back was very different,
Yeah.
but if you do it now, how should you, how would you recommend a 21, 22-year-old person starting in content to think?
It's a great question. I would recommend learning everything possible about AI immediately. Just throw yourself into it because it's only going to keep growing and becoming a prominent player in the space. And the more you have expertise that your senior colleagues don't have, the more value you can provide. So I would take a ton of classes on AI and follow the Twitter accounts, X accounts, and figure out what conversations are being had. Um, I would, you know, I do recognize that it's a really tough job market, I think, for young people these days, precisely because of things like AI making it a little redundant to, hire someone with entry level skills.
Yeah.
Um, but this is such a niche reference, but in the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, uh, Charlie's dad is a toothpaste manufacturer, and he gets replaced by a robot. So he learns how to fix the robot, and then he gets his job back. I kind of think that is something that's going to be really important for young people starting out in the industry. I would absolutely recommend finding really solid content marketing podcasts like this. I would strongly recommend learning the craft of storytelling. Joseph Campbell is a big name. I would look into his works, absolutely, because I think as a content marketer, you always need to think of your audience as the hero of their
Yeah.
journey. And you providing education are the, wizard on the side of the road saying, this is where your path is going to lead. Let me
Yeah.
guide you. So definitely leaning into storytelling, I think. And also psychology is a huge component of what we do. Understanding who your audience is, where their head is at.
Yeah.
When they're making crucial business decisions. You mentioned earlier, even in the B2B space, you're still dealing with a person.
Yes.
That CFO's head is on the line if they make a bad decision in terms of a product on board, right? So you want to think about ways that the content you create can help assuage those fears and also play on the empathy component. So really do some, invest time in learning about psychology. And, I would say just try to get in contact with people who are doing it as much as possible. I briefly flirted with the idea of getting into video games. And so I just reached out on LinkedIn to dozens of people in the video game industry. And I said, hi, I'm really interested in this space. Can I take you out for coffee and just talk to you for 10 minutes and learn more about what your day-to-day looks like? And not only will you get so many nuggets of wisdom out of even just a 10-minute conversation, you now have a networking connection.
I think that's spot on. And I think as marketers, we need more people to pay it back because I think that, or pay it forward, like that perspective, I think that just gives a lot of value to a lot of aspiring folks. But that's amazing. So over to the rapid fire round. I'll ask you 5 quick questions, 1-word answers preferably, and let's go from there.
Okay.
So LA or Bay Area?
LA.
Okay, that was easy. And what's your comfort food?
Goodles.
Oh, wow.
Mac and cheese.
That's very nice.
It's so good.
And if you were to choose an alternate career, what would that look like?
Neurologist.
Neurologist. I won't ask you why. And so moving on to the next question. If you were to become the chief storyteller of a brand that you deeply admire, what would that be?
Which brand?
You could choose. Like, what brand would you want to be the chief storyteller for?
That's a tough one. Probably Apple.
Apple?
Yeah.
Awesome. I think they need something.
Yeah. Yes. They got their brand pretty on lock.
Yes, yes. I think the last question would be, what would your humble brag be?
I was Miss Temecula in my hometown.
That's awesome. This is super great. Thank you so much, Shanti. I think it's been a pleasure hosting you.
Yeah.
I think our audience has got amazing, vibrant insights from your end. Thank you so much for making the podcast. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And
Thank you
if
so
anybody wants to reach out, I'm on LinkedIn, just my name, Shanti Ryle. Like you said, I'd love to pay it forward to
Awesome.
young marketers. So please reach out.
You know what to do. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.